You were taught these were sweet little stories. You were taught wrong: a shepherd, a lost sheep, a father, a son, comfort in felt and flannel, safe, tame, toothless, and nothing like the stories he actually told. To feel the edge, you have to know what the word actually means. Parable. In Greek, parabole. It does not mean nice story. It means a thing thrown alongside, para beside, bowl, to throw. A comparison, but a comparison with a blade hidden inside it. Now meet the man who threw them. Not at the center, at the edge. He is telling a story, and the crowd is leaning in, certain they understand. They think they do. They have no idea what he just said about them, because Jesus said something about the parables that should stop you cold. He did not tell them to make things clear. He told them to conceal, so that some would look and never see, hear and never understand. These are his own words in the Gospel of Mark. To you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but for those outside, everything is in parables. Look and not perceive, hear and not understand, lest they turn and be forgiven. If that unsettles you, good, it is meant to. And it was not the first time God had spoken like this. Centuries earlier, the prophet Isaiah heard the very same words. An old warning given new teeth. Isaiah had been sent to a nation that would hear and still refuse until their own hardness sealed them shut. Jesus takes up that same terrible mercy. So why would Jesus want to hide anything? Here's the answer most people never hear. A parable is a sieve. On a threshing floor, the farmer tosses grain up into the wind. The heavy grain falls back. The empty husks blow away into the dark. Nothing is added, nothing is taken away. The wind only reveals what each seed already was. That is what a parable does to a crowd. It sorts them where they stand. To the hungry, the humble, the desperate, it opens like a hand. To the smug, the self-satisfied, the sure, it closes like a door. The same story. Two entirely different outcomes. Everything depends on the heart hearing it. This is what a parable really is. Not a moral, a comparison thrown alongside, a truth too large to say straight, too large and too dangerous to hand to everyone at once. There are around 40 of them scattered across the Gospels. A sower, a pearl, a wedding, a father running, 40 separate stories. They look like they have nothing to do with one another, told to farmers and fishermen, to Pharisees and prostitutes, scattered across 3 short years. But line them up, and a single thread runs through nearly everyone. Nearly everyone is secretly about the same single thing: the kingdom of God breaking into the world, quietly where no one is looking. A kingdom that turns the whole world upside down, starting with the ones who missed it. So the question is never really about the story. The question is what the story reveals about you. Which side of the sieve are you standing on? Keep that question close. We are going to walk through all 40 of them in one clear sequence, and by the end, you will never read a single one of them the same way again. So let's begin where Jesus himself began, not with a temple, not with a throne, with a field and a man walking it. A farmer walking a field throwing seed. Watch what he does with it. You have heard this one 100 times. A farmer walks a field throwing seed, but you never notice the strangest thing about it. The same seed lands in 4 completely different places. The kingdom hidden in a weed. First, some of the seed falls on the path, the hard-trodden road along the edge of the field, and before it can even settle, the birds swoop down and snatch it away. Next, some falls on rocky ground where the soil is thin over hidden stone. It springs up fast, green, eager, alive, but it has no roots. So when the sun climbs high, it scorches, and the little plants wither and die. Then some falls among thorns, and the thorns grow up with it, and they choke it until nothing that could feed you is left but some seed. Some falls on good soil, deep, dark, ready, and it explodes 30, 60, 100 times what was sown. In a good year, a Galilean field might return 7-fold, maybe 10-fold. 100-fold was not farming, it was a miracle. Here's the twist you were never told. The parable is not really about the seed. The seed is always the same. What changes everything is the ground. And even Jesus' own disciples did not understand it, so they asked him what it meant. And this is the only parable Jesus stops to decode, line by line, a rare key he hands you for reading all the rest. His answer changed the whole story. The seed, he said, is the word, and the soils are hearts. The path is the heart too hard to let it in. The birds are what steals it away. The rocky heart receives it with joy, but has no root, and folds when trouble comes. The thorny heart hears, but worry and wealth choke the word before it can bear fruit. But the good heart hears, holds on, and bears fruit beyond all measure. So the real question was never about the farmer or the field. It is, which soil are you? Let anyone with ears to hear listen. Now Jesus tells a second seed story, and this one is even quieter. A man scatters seed on the ground, then he does the most ordinary thing in the world. He goes to sleep. He does not stand guard. He does not dig it up to check. He walks away and lets the night have it. Night and day, whether he wakes or sleeps, the seed sprouts and grows. And here is the line that should stop you cold. He does not know how. The earth produces by itself first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain. You cannot pull it faster, you cannot force it. The kingdom grows on its own. And when the grain is ripe, at once the harvest comes. Then comes the third story, and Jesus reaches for the smallest thing he can find. The mustard seed, smaller than any seed a farmer would sow, and yet from that speck grows the greatest of shrubs, tall enough to be called a tree. Its branches spread so wide that the birds of the air come and nest in its shade. And every listener would have caught the echo. In the prophets, the great empires were mighty cedars, and the birds nesting in the branches were the nations sheltering under a kingdom. Jesus takes that towering image and swaps in a weed. But here is the hook nobody points out. Mustard was not a noble tree, it was a common weed. Farmers tore it out. It spread where it was not wanted. Comparing the mighty kingdom to it was almost an insult, and that was exactly the point. God's kingdom does not arrive as a towering cedar. It comes small, common, overlooked. It looks like nothing, and then it takes over everything. Then comes the fourth story, and this one he gives not to a farmer but to a woman in a kitchen. She takes a little yeast and hides it deep in a great mass of flour, enough flour for a feast, and she works the hidden yeast through all of it. And now the hook that should unsettle you. In the Bible, yeast almost always meant one thing: corruption. Beware the yeast of the Pharisees, Jesus warned elsewhere, the thing that spreads and spoils. At Passover, every crumb of leaven was hunted down and swept out of the house, because for Israel, yeast was the very picture of sin working unseen. So why would he use a symbol of corruption for the holy kingdom of God? Because that is exactly how the kingdom works. Not loud, not visible, hidden, buried in the ordinary, working while no one watches, unstoppable once it begins. And when it is finished, it changes everything it touches, until the whole batch is transformed. Line up all four stories, and one thread runs through every one of them. The kingdom always begins small, a seed, a speck, a pinch. It grows in the dark in ways no one can see or force. Every real thing does. The root comes before the fruit. The burial comes before the rising, and it ends up far larger than anyone watching the beginning could have believed. This is how God chose to run the universe, through the small, the hidden, the overlooked. No armies, no thrones, no shouting in the streets, just seed and soil and time. So here's the question that hangs over all of it. A kingdom this hidden, this quiet, this small, what could it possibly be worth? Everything, it turns out, and the next stories reveal a treasure worth selling all you own to hold. You've heard the last chapter, a kingdom quiet as a weed, hidden as yeast in dough. So here's the question no one asks about something that small. What is it actually worth? Jesus answers with 3 short stories and a warning most people skip. Worth selling everything for. Start with a man walking across an ordinary field. Nothing about it looks like a fortune. He isn't the owner. He's working land that belongs to someone else. Then his blade strikes something hard buried under the dirt. He digs, and the dirt gives way to gold. A buried treasure, worth more than a lifetime of wages, sitting in someone else's field. In the ancient world, with no banks and armies always on the march, this was how people kept their wealth safe. They buried it and told no one. And when the owner died without passing on the secret, the treasure simply waited in the dark for the next blade to find it. And here's the detail that changes everything. He doesn't just take it, he covers it back up, because by law the treasure belongs to whoever owns the field. So to own the treasure, he has to own the field, and that will cost him. Rabbinic law was explicit about this. What is found in the soil belongs to whoever holds the soil. Grab it and run, and he's just a thief. Buy the field, and every last coin of it is his, legally, forever. So he goes home to do the only thing that will make the treasure his own. Everything he owns, his house, his tools, his savings, all of it put up for sale. To anyone watching, he looks like a man who has lost his mind. But watch his face. He isn't grieving. He's doing it in his joy. Not because it cost him little, because what he's buying is worth infinitely more. That is what the kingdom does to a person who truly sees it. It rewrites the math of everything they own. Jesus tells the second story almost the same, but this time the seeker is looking. He's a merchant. His whole life is buying and selling the finest pearls. He has seen thousands. He knows exactly what each one is worth. And then one day he finds it. The one pearl he was never expecting. A single pearl worth more than his entire inventory. More than everything he has ever collected. So the expert who knew the price of everything does the unthinkable. He sells it all, and in the ancient world, a single flawless pearl really could carry that kind of price. Before diamonds were cut to catch the light, the pearl was the most coveted jewel on earth. Rome told stories of pearls worth the ransom of a province, one dissolved in a cup of wine on a dare, a fortune drunk in a swallow. So when Jesus says one pearl outweighs a lifetime of trading, his listeners didn't blink. They knew such a thing existed. Every lesser pearl traded for the one that outshines them all. So ask yourself the question Jesus is really asking. What is the pearl? It's the kingdom, and once you see it, no other price ever feels too high again. Matthew 13:44-46, 2 stories of joy. And then Jesus tells a third and the mood changes. A great net is thrown out into the sea, a dragnet sweeping wide. It doesn't choose. It gathers everything, every kind of fish, good and bad alike. They haul it to shore, straining, the net bursting with the whole catch. And now comes the part no one likes to mention. The sorting, the good fish go into baskets, the bad are thrown away, the net welcomed everyone. But the sorting was never optional. That's the uncomfortable edge of the kingdom. It gathers wide and then it separates. So the kingdom is a treasure, a pearl, and a net that ends in judgment, which means it demands a decision, which is why Jesus turned to the crowds following him and said something no salesman would ever say. Before you follow me, count the cost first. Picture a man who decides to build a tower. Doesn't he first sit down and reckon whether he has enough to finish it? Because a half-built tower isn't a monument. It's a public embarrassment. Or picture a king marching out to meet another king in war. Doesn't he first sit down and count? Can 10,000 stand against 20,000? You count first, because following Jesus is not a felt board lesson. It's the whole field, the whole fortune. But here is the strange grace of it. The cost is everything, and the joy still wins. The treasure, the pearl, the finished tower, all of it is worth more than the price. Worth liquidating your whole life for. That much Jesus makes unmistakable. Worth everything, yes. But now the harder question, who is it actually for? Not the people you'd expect. It goes searching for the ones everybody else gave up on. You've heard these 3 stories 100 times. You've never seen what they're really doing. Jesus told them all in one breath to people scandalized that he ate with sinners. The father who ran. Start with the shepherd. He has 100 sheep safe in the fold, and he leaves them. 99 are accounted for, but one is out there in the dark, and that's the one he wants. He walks the ridges and the ravines until he finds it, and then he doesn't scold it. He lifts it onto his shoulders and carries it the whole way home, rejoicing. He gets home and calls the neighbors, "Rejoice with me over one sheep." Notice, he doesn't leave the 99 behind because they don't matter. He leaves them because they're already safe. The whole point is that this shepherd cannot stand to lose even one. Now watch Jesus tell almost the same story again, but this time it's a woman and a coin. She has 10, she loses one, and her whole world narrows to that missing coin. That single coin was likely part of her dowry, her security, maybe strung across her forehead as a married woman's headdress. To lose it wasn't just to lose money, it was to lose a piece of who she was. She lights a lamp. She sweeps the entire house. She hunts every corner in the dark. And when the lamplight finally catches it, she can't keep the joy to herself. She throws a party. Here's the twist. The party costs more than the coin. That's the joke. Grace is never a careful accountant. It always spends too much. Both times Jesus lands the same line. Heaven throws a party over one found thing. One sheep, one coin. Not the 99, not the 9, the 1. But there was a third story that morning, and it makes the first two look small. A man had 2 sons. The younger one walks up and asks for his inheritance now. Sit with what that means. An inheritance comes when a father dies. So the son is really saying, I wish you were dead. Give me my share and let me go. In that village, an insult like that should have earned the boy a beating or a public shaming that cut him off for good. And the father stunningly says yes. He divides the estate and lets him walk. It means selling off land, liquidating a piece of the family's name in front of the neighbors. The father absorbs that humiliation without a word. He travels to a far country, and there he spends it all on everything that ruins a man. The money runs out, and right on cue, a famine hits the whole land. He ends up in the one place no Jewish son could sink lower, feeding pigs. Pigs were unclean, forbidden, the very symbol of everything a Jew was to stay away from. A son of the covenant is now a servant to swine. There was no lower rung. He's so hungry he eyes the pig's food. And no one gives him a thing. And then in the mud 4 words he came to himself. He rehearses a speech. I'll go home, confess, and beg to be hired as a servant. He turns for home expecting punishment. Here is where the story breaks every rule. Because here's the detail almost everyone misses. In that world, a grown man of honor never runs. To run, he'd have to hike up his robe and bare his legs in public. It was shameful, undignified. The father sees his son while he's still a long way off, which means he was watching for him. And this dignified old man does the unthinkable. He hikes up his robe and he sprints. He runs past the shame, past the staring village, straight at his filthy, ruined boy. He throws his arms around the boy who smells of pigs and kisses him. By running first, the father reaches the son before the village can. He takes the shame onto himself, so the boy never has to walk that gauntlet of stairs alone. He doesn't even let the son finish his confession. He's already calling for a robe and a ring. The best robe means honor restored. The ring means authority, a son again, not a servant. The sandals mean he is family, not a slave. Every gift undoes a piece of the disgrace. Luke leaves us the exact words. Read them slowly. He ran to his son. God in Jesus' story is a father who runs. That should stop you cold. So the father kills the fattened calf and throws a feast. The dead son is alive again. Music, dancing, lights spilling from the house. And now meet the real villain of the story. The older brother. The one who stayed. The one who did everything right. He hears the music, learns why, and refuses to go in. So the father comes out to him too. And out it pours. All these years I slaved for you, and you never gave me even a young goat. Notice what he says. I slaved. He was a son the whole time and felt like a hired hand. He kept every rule and never left the porch of his own heart. And here is the sharpest cut of all. When the father runs for the younger son, he shames himself in public. When the older son sulks outside the feast, the father comes out and takes that shame too. Pleading with him in front of the guests, the same running love goes out to both boys, only one of them refuses it. His brother's return isn't joy to him. It's an insult. Grace to him feels like injustice. And here's the gut punch. Jesus tells this to the religious men grumbling that he welcomes sinners. They are the older brother standing outside the party they were always invited to. And Jesus ends the story without an ending. Does the older brother go in? He doesn't say. Because the question is left hanging for you. Which brother are you standing in the dark? 3 parables, 1 point. Heaven is not careful with its joy. It runs, it sweeps, it sprints. The shepherd went out, the woman searched. The father was watching the road. That is the God Jesus was defending. To men who thought grace should be rationed, heaven runs to the sinner in the mud. It always has. It always will. But that same grace has an edge, and here's what almost no one is ready for. The grace that welcomes the wreck is the grace that offends the respectable, and that's where the trap springs. You've heard this one 100 times, and it was built to make you angry. A landowner walks out at dawn to hire workers for his vineyard. They agree on a wage, a full day's pay, and go to work. A denarius, a single silver coin, the standard wage for a full day of hard labor, enough to feed a family for a day. Fair terms freely agreed. Remember that because it matters. The parable designed to make you angry. Mid-morning he goes out again and finds more men standing idle. You also go into the vineyard, he tells them, and they go. Noon, 3 o'clock, each time more workers sent into the field. Then at the 11th hour, 1 hour before quitting, he hires the last. They worked 1 hour. The first men worked 12 in the burning heat. 12 hours under the sun against 1 hour in the cool of evening. Hold that gap in your mind. When evening comes, the owner calls for the paymaster. Watch what he does. Pay them, he says, beginning with the last ones hired. That order is deliberate. The dawn workers are made to stand and watch. Into each last worker's hand a full day's wage, the whole coin. The men who came at dawn see this, and their hearts leap. Surely they'll get more. If 1 hour earns a whole coin, 12 hours must earn a fortune. They reach the front, and into their hands falls exactly the same coin, the same, not a fraction more, for 12 hours against their one. And here, right here, you feel it, the heat rising in your own chest. And that is the point. You are meant to feel robbed alongside them. They grumble against the owner. You made them equal to us. The owner turns to one of them. His answer is quiet and it cuts. Friend, I've done you no wrong. Didn't you agree to this wage? No one was cheated. The dawn men got exactly what they bargained for. Take what is yours and go. I choose to give this last man the same as you. Are you envious because I am generous? Matthew chapter 20, verse 15. And there it is, the offense laid bare. Their complaint was never about fairness. It was that someone undeserving got the same as them. The wage was never earned, it was a gift. And gifts are never fair. Now leave the vineyard, step into a dinner where 2 men owed a debt. A moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed a fortune, one owed almost nothing. 500 days of wages against 50. Neither could pay. So the lender forgave them both, every last coin. Now Jesus asks one question, which of them will love him more? The answer is obvious, the one who is forgiven more. Great love flows from great forgiveness. Small love betrays a small sense of debt. So do the math on your own debt. How much do you think you've been forgiven? Answer honestly, because your answer decides how much you can love. If you think your debt was small, you will love small. Now the sharpest one of all. 2 men walk up to the temple to pray. One is a Pharisee, respectable, devout, everything you're taught to admire. The other is a tax collector, a traitor, a crook, the man everyone despises. The Pharisee prays, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, not like this tax collector. I fast, I tithe, I've kept the rules. Listen to the prayer again. Every line is about himself. He is not praying to God. He is admiring himself in God's presence. Far off, the tax collector won't even lift his eyes to heaven. He beats his chest. God have mercy on me, a sinner. God have mercy on me, a sinner. 7 words, no resume, no list of good deeds, just a plea from a man with nothing to offer. And then Jesus drops the line that would have stopped the crowd cold. It was the crook, the tax collector, who went home right with God, justified. The one word no one expected for a man like him. And the good, respectable religious man went home exactly as lost as he came. The one who exalted himself was humbled. The one who was humbled was lifted. 3 parables, 1 offense. Grace does not go to the ones who earned it. It goes to the ones who know they never could. If that offends you, the parable has done its work. It found the Pharisee in you. Grace lifts the humble, and it offends the proud. It always has. But grace that truly lands in you doesn't stop there. It changes your hands. It demands you become merciful yourself or prove you never received it at all. And that raises the hardest question of all. What do you do when the enemy needs your mercy? You've heard this one 100 times, but you never noticed who Jesus made the hero. A lawyer stood up to test him. Who, he asked, is my neighbor? So Jesus told a story. A man goes down from Jerusalem to Jericho. It was a road everyone feared, 17 miles of bandit country. Down it dropped more than 3,000 feet, through blind curves and hollow caves where robbers waited. Everyone in that crowd had made this journey, and everyone had felt their pulse quicken on it. And there on that road the bandits found him. They stripped him, beat him, and left him half dead in the dirt. Naked and bleeding, he was now impossible to identify. Not by his clothing, not by his accent, just a body in the dust. That detail matters more than you think. Now watch who comes down the road. First, a priest. He sees the body, and he crosses to the other side. And here's the part that stings. He had a holy reason to. Touch a corpse, and he'd be unclean. His duty gave him an excuse to look away. The very law he served became his reason to abandon a dying man. Then a Levite comes, a temple assistant. Surely he will stop. He looks. He leans in, and then he walks on too. Two holy men, two chances, two backs, walking away. The crowd knew where this was going. Next would come an ordinary Israelite, the hero. But Jesus said one word that made every listener flinch: a Samaritan. To this crowd, a Samaritan wasn't a stranger. He was the enemy, centuries of hatred. Different temple, different blood, different everything. Jews and Samaritans did not eat together, did not travel together, did not speak. A good Jew would take the long way around Samaria rather than set foot in it. And this despised outsider is the one who stops. He kneels in the dust beside a man who would have spat on him, oil to soothe the wounds, wine to cleanse them, his own hands, his own supplies. He lifts the stranger onto his own animal and walks beside him. Count the cost as it climbs. His own oil, his own wine, his own donkey, now carrying a stranger while he walks in the dust. He brings him to an inn and pays the innkeeper from his own purse. Whatever more you spend, he says, I will repay when I return. The 2 coins he left were 2 days' wages, and even that was only a down payment, an open-ended promise to a man he'll probably never see again. Then Jesus turned the question back on the lawyer. Which of these 3, Jesus asked, was a neighbor to the man? He couldn't even say the word, just the one who showed mercy. Go, said Jesus, and do the same. The hero was the enemy, but mercy received is only half the story. Jesus told a second parable about mercy refused. A servant is dragged before his king, owing a debt no man could ever repay. 10,000 talents. In today's money, millions upon millions, a crushing, impossible sum. 1 talent was 15 years of a laborer's wages. 10,000 of them was more money than existed in most kingdoms, a debt you could not clear in 100 lifetimes. Jesus chose the largest number his language had a word for. He falls on his knees and begs, be patient, I will pay it all. He never could. And the king does the unthinkable. He cancels it, all of it, gone. Forgiven a fortune, he walks out a free man, and then before he's even off the palace steps, he sees a man who owes him almost nothing. 100 denarii, a few days' wages, a handful of coins, set it beside what he was just forgiven, and the gap is almost obscene. A debt 600,000 times smaller than the one wiped clean off his own account minutes ago. He grabs him by the collar and throttles him. Pay me what you owe. The poor man falls to his knees and begs in the very same words he just used. But he refuses and throws the man into prison until he can pay. The other servants see it. Sickened, they go and tell the king everything. The king calls him back, and now his voice is thunder. I forgave you everything. Should you not have shown the same mercy? And he hands him over to the jailers to be tormented till the debt is paid. Forgiven $1 billion, he choked a man over 20. And here's the part you don't want to hear. Jesus said this parable is about you, about the mercy you were given and the mercy you withhold. The Samaritan crossed a canyon of hatred to show it. The servant wouldn't cross a courtyard. Mercy given proves mercy received. Mercy refused proves you never understood it at all. This is mercy or nothing. There is no third door. But some refuse the mercy on offer, and when they do, the invitation moves on to people no one invited. You keep meeting a hero in these stories. This time, look closer. The hero is you, and you're the villain. For 3 chapters now, the respectable have been the problem. Watch it become a pattern you can't unsee. Why the good people are the villains. Start with a father and 2 sons. A simple question that traps everyone who answers it. He asks the first son to go work the vineyard today. The son says it to his father's face, no. Flat, defiant, disrespectful. But later, no one watching, no one to impress, he goes anyway. The father turns to the second son and asks the very same thing. Yes, sir, he says, polite, willing, every right word, and then he never goes. The vineyard waits for a son who never comes. So which one actually obeyed his father? The answer indicts everyone listening. Everyone in that crowd knows it instantly. The one who went, not the one with the manners, the one with the mud on his hands. Now the sentence that stopped them cold, the tax collectors are getting in ahead of them. The no that turned into obedience beats the yes that turned into nothing. Hold that. He's saying it out loud. To the priests, the tax collectors, and the prostitutes are entering the kingdom of God ahead of you, the people they despised most. Walking in first. Then Jesus tells another vineyard story. This one, he aims like a spear at the men in front of him. A landowner plants a vineyard, builds a tower, digs a winepress, then rents it out and leaves. At harvest, he sends servants to collect his share. The tenants have other plans. They beat the first, they stone the next, they kill the one after that. He sends more servants, same slaughter. The vineyard becomes a graveyard for messengers. Finally, he sends the one person they would surely honor, his own son, the heir. Surely the landowner thinks, they will respect my son. This is the heir, they say. Kill him, and the inheritance is ours. They drag him outside the vineyard and kill him. The heir, dead in the dust for a field. Here's the chill of it. Jesus told this to the chief priests, describing exactly what they were about to do to him. The son killed outside the vineyard. Jesus would be killed outside the city walls. He is narrating his own murder to the men who would order it. They understood he was talking about them, and they wanted him arrested on the spot. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The very stone the expert builders threw away is the one that holds the whole building up. The builders were the experts, and they threw away the one stone that mattered most. Their whole training taught them to spot value, and it blinded them to the only thing that counted. Same move every time. The ones certain they're the insiders are the ones who miss it. Which brings us to the strangest party in the Bible, a feast almost no one shows up to. A king throws a wedding feast for his son and sends servants to call the invited guests. But the guests won't come. One has a field, one has oxen, one just married a wife. Every excuse is ordinary, property, business, love, nothing evil, and that's the point. No one says they hate the king. They just have something better to do. The invitation of a lifetime, and they treat it like an interruption. The king is furious, his table is ready, and the invited have shut themselves out. So he sends the servants out again, not to the fine houses this time, but to the streets. Bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, the nobodies no one ever put on a guest list. They come street by street. The servants keep going until every seat is filled. The hall that the respectable emptied, the forgotten fill to the walls. And where are the first guests? Outside in the dark, at chairs that stayed empty for them. The people who were sure of their seats lost them. The people who never dreamed of an invitation are the ones at the feast. The insiders shut themselves out. The outsiders walked right in, lined the three. Up, the sons, the tenants, the guests, and one shape appears in all of them. In each one, the right people, the sons who said yes, the trusted tenants, the honored guests, are the villains. The parable stops being a story about them. It becomes a mirror pointed at you. Every listener assumed they were the faithful son, the good tenant, the honored guest. That's the trap. The story lets you judge, then springs and the judgment lands on you. It's Nathan telling David a story about a stolen lamb, then saying, "You are the man." These stories were never cozy. They slip past your guard and then name you. So don't ask which villain you'd never be. Ask which one you already are. The son who said the right words, the tenant who wanted what wasn't his, the guest too busy to come. Again and again, the religious insiders turn out to be the villains of the story, and they never saw it coming because they were sure they'd already passed every test. There's one test left, the one every last one of them believed they had aced. Not faith, not law, not prayer, something quieter that runs deeper than any of them. The next test is money, and what you do with it says more about your soul than you'll want to hear. 3 parables, one uncomfortable question, and it's the last one you'd expect from Jesus. Not what you believe, not what you say, what you do with your money. Jesus said more about money than heaven and hell combined. Here's why. What your money says about your soul, the wealth parables. Start with a man who did everything right. A good year, a great harvest. His land produced so much he ran out of room to keep it all. So he made a plan, tear it all down, build something bigger, bigger barns, bigger storehouses, enough laid up for years to come, and then he said the sentence that damns him. He talked to his own soul, "Soul, you have plenty, take it easy, eat, drink, be merry." He never once looked up. He never asked who gave the harvest. And that same night, while the wine was still poured, the voice came, "You fool, this very night your life is demanded of you." Luke chapter 12, verse 20. The verse most people skip right over. Then whose will it be? Everything you stored up for yourself? Rich toward himself, bankrupt toward God. That was his whole crime. Listen again to the way he speaks. "I will pull down my barns. I will store my grain. I will say to my soul," count the pronouns, "I, myself," over and over. And not once does he say we or you or God. There is no neighbor in his plan. There is no thanks in his mouth. He has built a whole world with room for only one person in it, and then discovers he cannot keep even himself. Now the second story, and this one Jesus set on the far side of death itself. A rich man in fine purple feasting behind his gate every single day, and outside in the dirt at his gate, a beggar named Lazarus, starving. And here is a detail worth stopping on. In every other parable Jesus tells, no one has a name. The sower is just the sower. The son is just the son. But this beggar is Lazarus, the only named character in any parable, while the rich man, the one the whole world would have known, is left nameless. Heaven keeps a different guest list than earth. He longed for the scraps. Even the dogs treated him more kindly than the man inside. Then both men died, and everything turned inside out. Lazarus, the beggar no one fed, carried into comfort and light, and the rich man, the one who had it all, in torment and thirsty at last, and between them, fixed and permanent, a great chasm no one can cross. Notice the man who ignored a beggar at his gate now begs at a gate of his own. The distance he kept from Lazarus in life has hardened into the distance between them forever. He begs for one drop of water. The answer it cannot cross. Not now. Then send someone to warn my brothers, he pleads. Someone back from the dead. And the reply is the sharpest line in the story. They have Moses. They have the prophets. If they won't listen to those, a man risen from the dead won't change them either. The warning wasn't the chasm. It was the gate he walked past every day. Now the third parable, and fair warning, this one is genuinely strange. A manager is caught wasting his master's wealth. He's about to be fired, too weak to dig, too proud to beg. He has one desperate window left. So while he still holds the keys, he moves fast by lamplight. He calls in the debtors one by one. You owe 100, make it 50. You owe 100 measures of wheat. Write down 80. Debt after debt, slashed. Every slashed bill buys him a friend, somewhere to land when the job is gone. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The master finds out and he approves. Jesus praised a dishonest manager. Read that again. It stops people cold. So let's be careful. This is the one parable scholars still argue over. He is not praising the fraud. He is praising the foresight. This is likely the hardest parable in all the Gospels to interpret, so hold it loosely. The crook read the future clearly. Most religious people never do. Use worldly wealth, Jesus says, to make friends for eternity. Money is temporary, so spend it on what lasts when the money's gone. You cannot serve both God and money. One of them will own you. Line them up. The fool, the rich man, the manager, same fork every time. One hoarded, one ignored the man at his gate, one finally used it wisely. Your bank account is a spiritual document. It records what you actually love, not what you claim, not what you tithe, what you quietly do when no one is watching. Each of these men thought he had all the time in the world, and every one of these stories quietly assumes the very same thing. The master is coming back, and sooner than anyone is ready for, which means the only question left is whether the door will be open when he knocks. You've heard the last 4 chapters. Every one of them ends the same way. The master is coming back. So this chapter asks one question 5 different ways. When he arrives, are you ready? Ready or not, the door does not wait for the unprepared. It begins at a wedding, the way so many of his stories do. But this one has a shadow on it. 10 young women wait through the dark for the bridegroom to come. 5 of them were wise, and the wisdom was one small, easy-to-miss decision. They brought extra oil, not enough to notice, just enough to matter. The other 5 were foolish, and their foolishness looked exactly like everyone else's at first. In a first-century wedding, no one knew the hour. The bridegroom came for his bride when the arrangements were finally settled, and that could be dusk or deep in the night. So you waited with a lamp lit because he might arrive at any moment. The bridegroom was delayed hour after hour, and every eyelid grew heavy. Then at midnight the cry, "The bridegroom is here. Come out to meet him." The foolish looked down, and their lamps were sputtering out. "Give us some of your oil," they begged. "Ours is going out." And here is the hook, the one thing you cannot borrow at the last minute. Readiness can't be handed over in the dark. Some things you carry in yourself or you don't. So the foolish ran off into the night to buy some, and that was the moment everything was lost. The bridegroom came, the ready ones went in with him, and then the door. It shut, and a shut door is a terrible final kind of quiet. The oil was never the point. The oil was a whole life of quiet preparation, the kind that can't be crammed in at the last second. The 5 came back breathless. "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." And from inside came the words no one ever wants to hear, "I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." So one story warns you to be ready. The next asks a harder thing, what did you do while you waited? A master entrusts his fortune to 3 servants, then leaves on a long journey. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2, to the last 1, and then he was gone. And a single talent was no small thing. It was a staggering sum, years and years of a laborer's wages handed over in 1 bag. Even the servant with the least held a small fortune. The first 2 went out and got to work, trading, risking, building. They doubled it. 5 became 10, 2 became 4. But the 3rd servant did something that seemed so reasonable, so safe. He dug a hole, and he buried his master's gold in the cold ground. He wasn't lazy, he was afraid. And fear told him the safest thing was to do nothing at all. Then at last the master came home, and he called for an accounting. To the 2 who risked and multiplied, "Well done, enter the joy of your master." Then the 3rd stepped forward, brushing the dirt off his 1 buried bag. Here's the hook. The servant who played it safe is the one who lost everything. Playing it safe wasn't caution, it was distrust, and it was cast into the outer dark. Notice the one who failed? He didn't lose the money, he didn't steal it, he simply buried it and did nothing. In this parable, doing nothing is the only sin. 2 stories now, and the same nerve. The master returns, and it matters how he finds you. A master puts 1 servant in charge of the whole household while he's away. Do the job well, and when he walks in unannounced, you're found faithful and lifted higher. But say to yourself, "My master is delayed," and the mask slips. And that is exactly the moment, off guard, unready, that the door swings open, ready or not. And readiness was never something you could fake at the last second. Same servant, same keys. The only difference was whether he lived every ordinary day as if the master might walk in tonight. If those stories leave you anxious, good. The next one is the antidote. It's about how you wait. In a certain town, there was a judge who feared neither God nor man, and a widow with no power, no money, no leverage, only a plea he kept ignoring. In that world, a widow had no protector and no standing, the very picture of someone with nothing to bargain with. So she came back, and back, and back. Day after day, she wore a groove in his door, until at last the godless judge threw up his hand. "Fine, I'll grant her justice, just to be rid of her." Now the hook. If even a corrupt judge finally caves, how much more a father who loves you? Keep knocking. Don't lose heart. The delay is not a shut door, it's an open invitation to keep coming. 4 stories in, 1 thread remains, and it's the one that will surprise everyone. When the king comes in glory, he gathers every nation before him, the whole human race in 1 field. And he does something a shepherd does every single evening. He separates the sheep from the goats. Sheep at his right hand into the light, goats at his left into the dark. To the sheep he says, "I was hungry and you fed me, a stranger and you took me in." And here the whole thing turns because the righteous are baffled. "Lord, when did we ever see you? As you did it to the least of these," the king answers, "you did it to me." The hungry, the stranger, the sick, the imprisoned, every time they were met with mercy, the king himself was being served, hidden inside the least likely face. Then to the goats, the same surprise, but reversed. "When did we see you hungry and not help? Neither side saw it coming. Both had met the king 100 times and never once recognized his face. Readiness, it turns out, was never about the last-minute rush. It was about who you already were. 5 parables, 1 shut door, 1 buried coin, 1 worn-down judge, 1 flock divided at dusk. Every one of them asks the same quiet question. When the door opens, which side of it are you on? So step back. One pattern runs under all 40 of them. Here it is. Step back. You have walked past 40 of these stories. Now look at all of them at once, 40 stories, and under every one of them runs a single hidden thread. The pattern most people miss, stated plainly for the first time. Every parable is about the same one thing, the kingdom of God breaking quietly into the world, whether the world notices or not. A tiny seed, a hidden treasure, a running father, different pictures, one kingdom. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Now watch the second thread. Every single one flips who is in and who is out. The outsider is the hero. The religious insider is the villain. Every time, the last become first and the sure become lost. And here is the thread that changes everything. Every parable is secretly about you. Remember the prophet Nathan, who came to King David with only a story. A rich man stole a poor man's only lamb. David burned with anger until the story turned, "You are the man." 4 words that turned the story into a mirror aimed straight at the king. That is what every parable does. It slips past your guard, then turns and points at you. They were never safe, little moral tales. They were built to disarm you and then strike. They conceal from the proud and reveal to the humble. The story itself is a sieve. Where you land in the story is not the story's secret. It is yours. The parables are mirrors, and a mirror only shows you what is already there. You do not choose whether they judge you. You only choose whether you listen. This is the pattern most people miss. So let the questions come, the ones the stories were always asking you. Which soil are you? The hardened path, the shallow rock, the choking thorns, or the good ground? Which brother are you? The prodigal who ran home, or the one who stayed and never rejoiced? Which servant are you? The one who invested in faith, or the one who buried it in fear? And the sharpest question of all, which man walked home justified before God? The one who listed his virtues, or the one who could only beg for mercy? Answer honestly, and the whole video turns on you. That was always the point, to whom it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom. So let's line them up one more time, every picture Jesus painted. The sower, walking the field, throwing seed across 4 kinds of ground. The single pearl, worth a merchant's entire fortune. The father running, robe hiked, dignity forgotten, to a son who was as good as dead. The lonely road to Jericho, and the enemy who stopped to kneel. 10 lamps in the dark waiting for a bridegroom who came at midnight. The door that shut, and the finality of hearing it close from the wrong side. The shepherd dividing the sheep from the goats, and both sides surprised. 40 stories, 1 kingdom, 1 question aimed straight at your heart. So before you go, 1 honest question. Which parable hit you hardest, and which one are you living inside right now? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and I think the answers will surprise you. If one of these stories found you today, don't let it slip past. Sit with it. If this made the parables come alive for you, there is one simple thing you can do. Give this video a like. It helps these stories reach someone who needs them. And subscribe so you're here for the next story we walk through together. Hit the bell and you won't miss a single one. The kingdom is still breaking in, quiet, hidden, unstoppable, and closer than you think. So the only question left is the one every parable asked all along. Where are you in the story? Sit with that, and I'll see you in the next one.